Let's talk. Let's talk about knife crime and the devastating effect it leaves behind. Let's talk about knife amnesty and crimes among ethnic minorities. Let's talk about black on black crimes, gun crimes, drug crimes. Let's talk about the headlines. Let's talk about purifying our young teens' minds. Let's talk about single parents, mothers who can't afford to pay the rent, absent fathers. Where are the elders? Where are the community leaders? Let's talk. Let's talk about knife fights, bragging rights, dead bodies, and sleepless nights. Let's talk about what makes us misbehave and why, to crime and violence, we become a slave. Let's talk about knife crime and its alarming statistic, the epidemic, black teens wrapped in plastic. Let's talk about knife crime in Nottingham, down south, as the government sit idly and does little about. Let's talk about black youths being at a disadvantage as others prey and takes advantage. Let's talk about the route, the cause, no if nor because. Let's talk about institutional racism, the real causes from within. Let's talk about the stop and the surge, the black purge. Let's talk about the war over a postcode. Let's talk about who owns these roads. Let's talk about crime and nonsense. Let's talk about the crimes which makes no sense. Let's talk about Stephen Lawrence. Let's stop and think for a second. Let's all remember Danielle Beckham. Heavy is the head that wears the crowd. I'm black and proud all year round. I wouldn't have it no other way. Let's not forget Damilola Taylor. Not for a second, minute, not for an hour. Hovering above the black community is a dark storm. It's a sad day when knife crime has become the norm. I live in fear for my life. Use causing mischief, end the strife. I'm only 15. I've got so much hopes, so much dreams. Not sure if I'll live to see tomorrow. Constantly watching over my shoulder. Knife crime, for far too long, has wrecked out the community. We need to come in unity, protecting our family, promoting our culture. Stop living like vultures. It takes a village to raise a child. God bless the meek and the mild. For my brother, I'd walk the extra mile. We say no to knife crime, yes to living a lifetime. I'll watch over yours, and you protect mine. We'll live that way till the end of time.
C'est la nuit. Pluie. Les lumières du cinéma se reflètent par terre. La foule sort, se disperse. Restent deux femmes et un...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Poetry To Your Eears podcast.
Hello.
Hi. We're joined today by Mayor Lindsay and Zayden Lindsay. Mayor Lindsay is a poet originally from Jamaica, now living in Nottingham. He performs poetry about racism, knife crime and poverty, and more recently the cost of living crisis. Joining him today as well is his son Zayden, who also writes poetry and performs poetry. Zayden's poetry deals with bullying, growing up, compassion and race. Zayden is 15 and started writing poetry when he was 9, I do believe. Welcome to the show, guys. Our second attempt.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Yeah. So just to catch up the audience, I know we've already said this, but just to catch up the audience, we found out about you guys on BBC, of course. How did they get in touch with you from BBC?
Yeah, we got okay. BBC heard about us through the Nottingham Evening Post. Sorry, to the Nottingham Evening Post, and the journalist Alex reached out and asked if I mind doing a piece because they liked the idea of the father and son act. So he says he'd never seen another father and son poet. So he reached out to us, and I said certainly. So it happened within 2 weeks of being in the Nottingham Evening Post. So it's like a roller coaster. It's like the chain reaction, the domino effect. It was from one getting noticed by one media house, leading to another, and that's how the BBC got picked up on Zayden and I.
And you've been doing poetry for years and years now. So this event,
Many years. We've been doing poetry since I lived in Jamaica. But at that age, I came to this country when I was age 22. But it wasn't the mature back in the 90s to be a poet. So it's one of them things that my friends knew I was good with words, but I kept it to the fore. So you know what I mean. The only person that really knew about my poetical side is if I'm trying to, my ex-girlfriends, I'd write them letters and write them, poems and they, we never had the internet, so they wouldn't thought that it got printed from the internet at the time, so they knew it was my own work. So I've been doing it for many, many, many years. And then, as I said, I came to this country, did university, did everything else, made a credit. My wife and I started a family, and I did the mortgage, go on holidays, just talking to my wife, and I'm like, I need to do something for myself now, and I think I'm gonna start writing again. So that's how I got back into writing in the UK. And this time I'm thinking it's not going to be kept to the fore now. I'm an adult and you know what I mean? I'm going to write and get let people around me know that I'm writing. So that's how I got back in the public eye with writing poems.
And how did you start writing together as father and son?
It's I can't describe the feeling. I can't describe the feeling. Going on the motorway, walking on stage together, doing interviews like these together. It's it's a really really good feeling. It's hard. It's so hard to describe. And then you look around and you don't see many other father and son political acts. You know what I mean? And I think this is something really and truly special.
Yeah. So, like, from your perspective, Zayden, like, when did you first ever remember like wanting to write poetry, like feeling like you wanted to do it yourself, rather than like just watching your dad?
Well, I first started writing poetry in like 2017, and I just saw the way that he acted on stage and performed on stage. And I just wanted to be a part of it ever since.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So, like, was it related to the performance, or like just loving poetry itself, like reading it or writing it? Like, what's your favorite aspect of poetry?
Well, at the time, the only poetry that I was like exposed to was my dad's, and I wanted to be a part of it and write it alongside with him.
Yeah, yeah. And how's it going now? Like, since the BBC exposure and that, like, you guys haven't played live. You mentioned.
It's going really good. I've gained a massive following for it from people in school, and a lot of people have reached out to me on Instagram to say well done. It's going really well.
Yeah, sweet.
That's a lovely.
I want to ask you guys as well, because like in the London scene, a lot of people, like they're almost like afraid to be referred to as poets, right, or identify as poets. They prefer to be called spoken word. Yeah, how do you guys feel about that label of like poet?
I'm old school. I'm a old school anime. I will fly the flag and I'll say it loud and say it proud that I'm a poet. Spoken word is just a play on words to being poet. And I think most people tag poetry back to the days of William Shakespeare. So when people say, well, I've got a poetry event, people just can imagine people stand there with a book. And I think that's the sort of the stigma that comes with poetry. But poetry's come a long way since. We've had so many great poets in the last 30, 40 years. And I mean, for people to still have that stereotype. But I wouldn't say I'm a spoken word artist. I'll proudly say I'm a poet. You know what I mean?
Heya! I hope you're enjoying listening to this episode. This episode is sponsored by Write Bloody UK. They're an independent publisher that publishes bloody beautiful poetry books. You get 10% off all books on their website, writebbloodyuk.co.uk, with the code Poetry to Your Ears. That's 10% off with the code Poetry to Your Ears on the website, writebbloodyuk.co.uk. Hope you enjoy it! And for you, Zayden, because in school you study poetry, but it must be a very different kind of poetry. How do you imagine that in your mind, the difference between what you read and what you see in the poetry scene, and how is that for your friends as well when you say you're a poet?
They really enjoy the poetry I do as well, and if I'm not studying it in a class, it will not be that difficult for me because I'm used to writing it.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the live stuff you've done in some of the videos. You're a really passionate live performer. I can see you doing a lot in the future. Do you see your future in poetry? Like, how do you think of it in terms of your future?
Yeah, I can just go as far as I want with it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So have you performed in school as well? Is that what you're saying?
Not yet. We're still working.
Not yet. Do the teachers know?
Yeah, they really enjoy it as well.
Yeah, cool. So I think our audience would like to hear some of you guys' poetry now. Like, I don't know how we want to do this. Like, do you want to do like one after another, or what do you guys want to do?
Okay.
Should we do one each?
Huh?
Should we do one each?
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We can do something. Do one then. Huh?
Shall I do wounded?
No, you can do the bully one first.
I was targeted by a bully, which was something I didn't understand fully. First, I thought he was my friend, my pens and pencils, to him I lend. Suddenly he changed, started acting strange, calling me names. At dinner time, he shoved me out the line. During assembly, he always teased me. At nights I lost sleep, didn't eat. At times I weep, but I kept it discreet. I was afraid to tell my dad, in case he went mad. So I told my brother, hoping he'd tell my mother. As I hoped, so he did. My mum was angry, furious, and livid. My mum rang the teacher, who did reassure her that all would be fine, there will be no more crossing the line, and soon after I regained my friend. What was broken we mend, time together we spend. The end.
Nice one.
Did this poem help you to take ownership of a difficult situation, which is being bullied?
Yeah, this was my first ever poem, and people really received a good message from it. So it turned out good in both ways.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are actively making a change in your environment by speaking up about it?
Yeah, I just hope people would listen to our poems and actually learn something from it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, which is like a bigger question, which is about, you know, how far do you guys think poetry can affect like social change?
My me personally, um, when it comes to words, I mean, words are more powerful than the pen, the sword, the knife. Words are really powerful because for every crime that's committed, someone has to pass the order down, as in go and do this. It begins with words. Every crime begins with words. If someone's gonna rob a bank, they're gonna sit down and plan it and use their words to plan what they're gonna do. So words are more powerful than bombs, guns, knife. So I think words are the that vehicle that can use to get people from one extreme situation to another. Words are very powerful and it's always used. There's a lot of music that does not get played in my house because the words are just not what I want my mother, my father, none of my three boys, my wife to hear. Words are powerful. And through words, it can lead people on the right path and you can also take them on the wrong path. So words are really powerful. I think there's sky's the limit. I don't try to be big-headed, but I've always said to everyone, my poetry is a new type of flow. My poetry is very entertaining because I'm talking about what's happening today in a fashion and in a style that resonates to both the younger generation and to the older generation. My poetry event each year, last year I said about 500 people, would have been the audience would have been 50% would have been under 21 years of age. And then the rest would have been up to age 75, up to age 80. So we've got a very diverse audience in terms of age. Because people want to hear what's going to be said next. Yeah, so, and I mean, so words
I'm
are
just
powerful, so
thinking
this.
like
Yeah, so,
about
and I mean, so
the.
words are powerful, so this.
I'm just thinking about the difference between
Sorry?
awareness and creating actual change. So, for example, so you wrote a poem and you really spoke a lot about it, about being bullied, and so people in your school, the teachers and that heard it. Did that make any change in the way the school perceived harassment, or that did they treat it more as an issue, or did they just say, "Wow, you're so brave," and just drop the ball? If that's very harsh, but.
Are you asked basically? Is it the case you're saying if like there any changes from did any changes happen to the way the school dealt with bullyism from Zayden writing that poem?
The way they treat harassment in the school.
Okay, it happened when yeah, it happened when Zayden was age 9. So I think the teachers saw it as kids being kids, but they did speak to the young person involved and say, if he doesn't like this, he doesn't like it. But I think they were more from the point of view, they're only 9 and boys will be boys, and it was just messing about. But it only can be messing about. It takes 2 to mess about. So if you're messing about and I'm not up for it and I'm not into that, then, you know what I mean, it's a bit one-sided to say kids will be kids.
Yeah, but I think.
So I think, yeah.
And what do you think, Zayden? What's your experience about how people treat you differently from speaking up?
Well, like the poem I just did was based on a true story, so I feel like when people got to listen to it, it gave me the respect. It gave me the respect I deserve in school.
And it's a poem that's like for all time as well, right? It's for everyone. It's for every school. It's not just for like Zayden's particular school at that particular age. It's a powerful poem about bullying in general, right? About that experience. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I deliver it in the poem, I feel like a lot of people can relate to it.
Definitely. Yeah, cool. So can we hear one of yours then, Mayors?
I'm gonna do one. This one's called Still I Rise. So this one's called Still I Rise. I've been spat at, been trampled on, been treated less than a human. Still I rise. I've been sidestepped, been given the eyes, subject to countless unpleasant surprise. Still I rise. I've been framed, been blamed, been called name, told upon a shame. Still I rise. I've been used, been abused, I've been refused, told and confused. Still I rise. I've been chased, been called a waste, told I want a taste and I'm out of place. Still I rise. I've been pushed, been shoved, been starved of love, been kicked, been licked, been whipped. I've been tricked. Still I rise. I've been locked up, been locked out, found guilty without a doubt. Still I rise. I've been angry, been mad, been sorrowful, been sad, been woeful, accused of being ungrateful. Still I rise. I've been overworked, underpaid. I've been a helper and a maid. Still I rise. I've been the best of the best, the worst of the worst. I've been a stalwart amongst men, been blessed with a curse. Still I rise. I rise. I rise.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Do people in the audience usually repeat the Still I Rise?
Yes, it is. It's my anthem. It's my that's the flagship one. I can't go anywhere, especially in the Midlands area, without performing that. Sometimes I gotta do it 2 or 3, sometimes 4 times, and the audience, some of the people know it word for word because I've got an album out, and the album is called Still I Rise. So yes, the album is called Still I Rise. So a lot of people, it was, I sold a few copies over probably over 200 copies within Nottingham. So you know what I mean, decent enough. People record themselves listening to it, put it on Snapchat. So Still I Rise is everyone's favorite. Not my personal favorite, but it's everyone else's favorite.
Is your album online or is it just physical copies?
The album?
Yeah.
It's not online. It's in the CD form still. So yeah, it is. At the end of this, you guys drop me an address and I can post you a couple post your few sign it and send it. Just drop me an address and I'll sign it, send it down, and you guys can have your own personal copy of it.
If any
Free
of
of charge.
our listeners want to get a copy, where can they get a copy?
They just message me, Mayor Lindsay Instagram, Mayor Lindsay Facebook, Mayor Lindsay TikTok, Mayor Lindsay YouTube. Just reach out to Mayor Lindsay, and if any other Mayor Lindsay pops up, just put in Mayor Lindsay Poetry, and that will bring you directly to myself.
And have either of you wanted to publish like a collection, like a book or something like that?
Yes, I've got a book ready to go out in hardback form. It's more along the line of finding the right publishing house to do the work for me. So yes, I've got the materials ready, everything ready, and just, you know what I mean, it just needs proofreading and the right publishing house. So yeah, I've got my materials ready. It's not about money; it's more of a legacy to leave a mark. So it's not about to make money. As I say, I'm a carer. I do counseling, psychotherapy with children in care. So I've got my 9 to 5 job, which comes first. The poetry comes second. So I've got work to publish.
Yeah, well, I'm sure with all these interviews, the publishing house will pick it up.
Yeah, hopefully someone picks up on it and makes me a good deal.
Yeah, what about you, Zayden? Would you like to write poetry, or are you happy with performing at the moment?
Can you say that again, please?
Yeah, would you like to publish some poems, or are you happy with performing it?
It's a bit both sided. I'm performing at the moment, and we have some things in the works as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Zayden, it's getting in that figure of sorry. I think with Zayden, it's getting that because you got published. If you're gonna publish a book, you need at least, I think, say 60, 70 poems. You know what I mean? So I think with Zayden, it's building the catalog. You know what I mean? But I don't. I see. Probably got. It got a few. Sorry. Let me slow that. Plug the charger in. Yeah. So we've got a few. Myself, I've got countless poems. I think it's more building Zayden's catalog to get him to that number where he can present.
Yeah. So how many like good poems would you say you got at the moment in your catalog?
25, 30.
Yeah, just like 25 to 30, like quite a few.
You cool. You're probably in that zone where it's like, growing up from like 13 to 15, 16, 17 is like, you're probably going to change like the way you write poetry over that period a lot, right? Like you're probably going to get like change your mind about some of the poems you wrote previously.
Yeah, I like to entertain the crowd, so I'm just going to write about like politics and what's going on in today's society.
Yeah. So Zayden, that poem you performed earlier is called Bully, right?
Yes.
What's also, could you perform for us one that I really like? It's called Wounded.
Should I perform it now then?
Yeah, you know it off the top of your head.
I'm going to get it. I'm going to load it up.
Yeah, sweet.
From boys to men, from the womb to the tomb, so many lives got snuffed out, crushed out, gone too soon. We leave the innocents to die, brag about dead bodies left behind with no reasons why. We make mothers cry. How many more tears from the eyes? Got killed while still a teen, didn't get to know what life really means, wasn't given the chance to fulfill his dream. Not all is as it seems. Cloak and dagger, smoke screens. I'd rather be buried in my grave than live a life where money I crave. Illicit things I trade, or to vanity I become a slave. Why must he misbehave? Got attacked by vultures, didn't stand a chance. What's wrong with our culture? Black youths dying by the seconds, by the hour. We cry, Black Lives Matter. How, when we are our own worst attackers, march with banners and put a fist, demanding equality, screaming justice. Damage is done, and we did it. We blame the government and cuss the system. We blame the fascist and blame racism. Just stop for a second and look deep within. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Now, not today, not tomorrow, not another hour. From boys to men, from the womb to the tomb. So many lives got taken, gone too soon. We were given the knife to take a life, the gun to shoot our brother down. Got miseducated and slowly being eradicated. We are indeed sitting ducks and jail-baited from the womb to the tomb. Rest in peace, gone too soon.
When did you write that poem?
Incredible.
Say that again.
When did you write that poem?
Like late 2021, I wrote it.
In the meantime, Zayden, I was wondering then, because you're doing your GCSE this year, would you like to study further poetry, or would you like to study something else, or?
After I finish my GCSEs, I'm going to study games technology.
Nice.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
And since I'm going to be going to a new college, this will allow me to extend my poetry to new people.
Yeah.
So kind of do like your dad, like have a day job and then do poetry.
It is
in practice.
I think that's the best way forward, because sometimes the things that we reach for in life, we don't always get it, but at the same time we've got to make sure we're able to provide for a family, and look after ourselves. So I would love to be a poet full time, like someone like Benjamin Zephaniah. I'd love to do that, or a Carla. I'd love to be a full time poet, but at the same time, I'm a bit realistic in terms of the earnings of a poet, in comparison to, I'm someone who has a degree in what I do. So I think, I've got to make the best of that degree because I invested in myself by getting that degree. So the poetry will, I think, at the minutes, will always play second fiddle to the my 9 to 5 job. As I say, I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm an uncle, and at the end of each month, the bill has to be paid. So if something comes along that presents itself where I can do poetry full time, I would love to do that. I would love to convince Zayden to do that. But until then, it's all about getting yourself that diploma, that degree, and then doing what you want to do as an hobby. And to be fair, doing poetry as a hobby is more fun because you're not under pressure to write. You write when you want to write.
Yeah, we have a lot of poets saying that, and I agree with it. That it gives a
When
lot of
you-
freedom not to think of it as like a money-making scheme. Or, not like a scheme, but if you have the pressure of paying the bills from your
Writing.
poetry.
Well, writer's block. I've never had writer's block because I've never been under pressure to write. In Nottingham, most of the audience are traditional white British English. So whenever I perform, they they can identify. So we write poems not just for any one set of people. So last year we had 500 people and 500 people in the audience, and probably 210, 220 would have been my white British. So we make sure we don't talk about anything such as whatever poems we perform has nothing to do with swear words. We don't use swear words. Nothing to do with homophobic. Nothing to do with, hardcore racism. If you watch my Nuts TV interview, Emma Caldwell from Smooth Radio, she was asking me, why don't you go harder in terms of racism? And I'm saying it's a case of it's an evening where Nottingham itself celebrate poetry. It's not about locking the door and say you've got to listen to what I've got to say. But the following year you lose that sort of audience. You know what I mean? So it's all about make sure you entertain everyone.
Hello, Loulou here. I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. I have an exciting announcement to make before you can continue listening. Poetry to Your Ears is now sponsored by Benki Publishing. Benki Publishing is an indie micro-publisher that champions neurodiverse artists and writers from other marginalized groups. So you can get a 10% discount on all books with the code Poetry to Your Ears 10. This code doesn't apply to zines, but it covers all books on their website, which is www.bentkeypublishing.co.uk. The code and the website link will be written in the episode description. We hope you find a poetry book you like, and tell us on social media if you purchased one. Now, back to our conversation.
But let me do another one. I've got one that I did from when I moved across from, and this I think is the first poem I wrote was when I moved across from Jamaica to the UK. It's called "I'm From a Place," and it says, "I'm from a place," because I was born and grown in Kingston, Jamaica. So I was comparing to how Kingston, in comparison to Nottingham, how relaxed Nottingham was, how peaceful Nottingham was, it was just totally different from living in Kingston. So my first poem, it says, "I'm from a place where it's common to be chased, where people do things in a haste and no time gets wasted, where no police is based or no human should be raised. I'm from the ghetto. I'm from a place where there's no law, where everyone's quick to draw, where women are loud and men are vulgar, a crime's committed every second, every minute, every hour. I'm from the ghetto. I'm from a place where everyone sees everything, but no one knows nothing, but willing to try anything, where informing is a sin and people are always gambling. I'm from the ghetto. I'm from a place where we live by codes and rules, where loyalty is a tool and you can't be a fool, and a place to act cool. I'm from the ghetto. I'm from a place where we tell it as it is, and that's what you want to hear. A place of giving and a place to share. A place we call home 12 months of the year. Yes, I'm talking about the ghetto. So that was the first poem, like comparing. People used to say to me, compare Nottingham to Kingston, Jamaica. And I thought the best way for me to compare it is to put it in a poem. So, people have an idea in comparison to what Kingston and Nottingham's like, which is nothing at all in terms of, the economy, crime. It's, living in the UK is, I know everywhere has its crime, but in comparison to living in Kingston, Jamaica, it is a paradise. And and that's why I chose to, after university, I decided I'm gonna live here, contribute to the society. I didn't want my boys growing up in Kingston because I've been there, done that, and it weren't the best of experience, but it shaped me, it molded me, and it makes me what I am today.
Mm. Do you still have contact with people in Jamaica?
So what is it?
You still have contact with people in Jamaica?
Yes, my mom's got my mom has 6 children. My mom and dad, 6 of us, and 4 of us live in England. And my other 2 sisters, the oldest 2, they still live in the family house in Kingston, Jamaica. So I got niece, nephews, and my 2 sisters out there, and plenty of friends. Still lives out there, and we do go back from time to time as well.
It's more powerful to put those sentiments and those feelings in a poem than it is to just flat out tell people, because it's almost
Yes.
like they won't listen, right?
Yeah. That was the idea of talking to people through my poetry. That's how I've always been, and I said to everyone, my slogan, my little catchphrase is, I've always said, Mayor Lindsay's like money. I've always said that, I know, and I'm very confident in my writing, and I know for my style of flow, people will always listen because it's been happening, and the more I perform, and the more I get feedback like what you just said, Tom, it makes me even more confident that I can actually address an audience of anyone. I'm talking about Kingston, Jamaica, and you're 2 British
I'm
English
French,
people.
but that's all right.
Get exactly what I meant.
I'm
Normally
French, but
people
that's
is
all
French.
right.
no, eh?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, also sorry about that,
Yeah.
but at least it makes it better. You can actually understand what I'm saying through my poetry, and it's a different audience from people from Kingston, Jamaica. They love this poem. People from Jamaica love this poem because they can identify and they know exactly what I'm talking about. But when I can get to another different races, different culture, and it can resonate, and you can identify and you can comment in a positive light, it is what makes me this confident when I'm writing.
Yeah, and I think it's important not just to kind of intellectually understand something, that we can do through statistics and news articles, but feel it as well, feel some empathy, feel some experience that, you've personally been through in your life, right? And your background and where you're from.
Yeah, it is, as I say, it is, I do my talk, as I say, I do my talking through my poetry, and when I go on any stage and I say the first few words, whoever was talking, whoever was drinking, whoever was dancing, it goes quiet. I've done the O2 Arena. If you look at my YouTube, my Facebook page, you'll see that I've done the O2 Arena, which was sold out. I was the main act, and that was yesterday was the fifth year. 5 years ago, we made it yesterday, and that was Bob Marley's birthday party. And I did that up there, and it was so received. It was unbelievable. Normally, as a poet, when I get a big audience like something like the O2, it's hard to get to them. But when I started performing, the place went quiet, and it went quiet soon. And even I was meant to do 30 minutes set. I ended up doing almost an hour. The promoter says, "Can you go back on?" And they worked out a fee. And he said the audience just wanted to hear more. So I'm quite confident in delivering I think Zayden delivers better than I do, because I think he actually does. But I'm quite confident overall. And I said, yeah, it is. I said, as I asked earlier, there is no limit to where we can take this. I know that if put me and Zayden on any stage, even the toughest, like someone like Britain's Got Talent, I know that we can rock anyone to listen to us once they give us the first minute. Give us 30 seconds and undivided attention for 30 seconds, and then we will get you with our words. And it's all positivity. We speak about negativity in a positive light.
Do you prefer performing to an audience that is used to poetry, like poetry events and stuff, or do you prefer to perform to kind of general audiences?
Um, my biggest and the best place I performed was the O2. Um, and that was a sort of roots reggae dancehall audience. It was there for Bob Marley's birthday, and that was a roots reggae audience. And the way the audience tuned in, and I mean, I've never had that feeling. I've seen anything like that before or after. A poetry audience, they will respect you. They'll be quiet. They'll clap when you finish, and they know. I mean, what a poetry audience are they'll do. They clicking on the finger as well, so we know what poetry audience does. But when you go out of your not your comfort zone, but when you go and I mean see perform to some a different set of demographics, so people who don't like poetry, Shakespeare, and I mean, and you get them, then you think, job done. We
Yeah.
want some new followers.
Yeah.
A lot of people are of the notion that poetry is a dying art form, and it isn't. Poetry is actually on the rise.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you guys are proving that, you know? You guys are keeping it alive.
Yeah.
Zayden,
What
keeping
about
it
you,
alive.
Zayden? About that same question.
What did you say?
The same question. You like to perform for poets, or do you like aim for people whose poetry are just the audience that don't know anything about poetry? You there prefer to perform too.
I like to perform to like an audience that's not familiar with poetry because it can like get them into poetry instead of performing it to people who are already interested in it.
That's it. And can I ask you guys, you mentioned music. Like, what influences music on your poetry? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of stuff do you listen to?
Um, it's trying to stay relevant. So if you go on like my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, and even when I send you them my album, you'll realize that we got a bit of a beat, a bit of a track behind a lot of what I do. It's just it's just to stay relevant. You're driving home, just you're driving home. You got something to nod to, as opposed to just my words. You know what I mean? Coming through your the speaker. So when you got a bit of a track and it blends in with the voice. You know what I mean? I did one called From Prisoner to a President, and I used the soundtrack to it, and the soundtrack was what sold it, and it really went well. But also, if you go on my YouTube page, I've got um, I've got literally gospel reggae, where I was doing the reggae side of the this gospel reggae, and that got viewed a lot. So I also do music, straight out music, but I don't dabble too much into that. And I mean, I try to stick to poetry, but my poems with a bit of a soundtrack behind it, it's made a lot of difference to people who just think poetry is talking.
Yeah, and I want to pick you up on that because in the BBC interview, you said that you felt like poetry was the greatest art form. You
I
still
think
agree?
it is.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it is. I says that to everyone before. I says to my wife, we've been together 27 years. I says to her, before I could approach you, I had to get my words right. And I mean, so it's a form of, so before I could approach her, I had to get my words right. So I spoke to her, and I mean, I've always been that guy, even though I lived in Jamaica, my English has always been above average. So I had to get my words right before I approach her. And that within its form, within itself, is a form of poetry. So if you want to sit down and have a one-to-one talk with my son, you know what I mean? You've got to talk and relate in a sense where you can understand what you're trying to say or what you're saying. So I think most things within, music, when anyone writes any music, the words are on the paper first before they get the music behind it. So most things is starts out in a poetical form. Starts out in a poetical form, and I think it's the greatest form of expression. I honestly do think that, not because I'm a poet, but I do music as well, and I can tell when, I've been places where, where people esteem guesses, and I've toured the island of Jamaica, and I've met people in high places, and they just wanted me to perform poetry, and the place was quiet,
When
and I just
when is your next performance? Do you have anything scheduled then?
April the 20, I think April the 24th. I got a text yesterday inviting me and Zayden to perform for Nottingham Shire Police. Because they always reach out to us. This will be the 4th year running from Nottinghamshire Police, because they know a lot of our poems are about knife and guns. They've requested that I do one called Crimes. So they've say, can you do crimes for us when you come? It's similar to just one of them are right because of knife crimes, like gunshot, gunspot, body drop, got shot by the Glock, mother's bawling, ambulance calling, teardrops falling, no motive, no cause, another life lost, no care, no fear, another life disappear. In need, in wants, don't stand a chance, waiting, anticipating, jail baiting, drug dealing, money stealing, life without a meaning, get rich, die young, that's all they believe in. Turf war, gone too far, left behind, cut, bruise, and scars. Knife crime, knife time, another dead body behind. No, it's something similar like that. So it goes on and it goes on. It's a very long poem.
It's got
to
real
get it
rhythm
done
to
in
it.
one.
It's
Yeah.
got musical quality.
Say it's all about the being contemporary, being relevant, put the word flow. Zayden has poems about, he writes about street slangs. What these kids talking street slangs today. A lot of them copy the Jamaican lingo, saying wagwan and things like that. Some of them don't even understand what it means. So Zayden Rad has poems about street slang. He's got poems called Bad and Bougie, which is relevant in today's society. So as I say, as long as we keep it modern and identify what's happening, people are always going to tune in. People are always going to want to hear what we have to say, and I think that's been the route to our success so far. Keeping it modern, keeping it fresh, talking about what's happening now.
You mentioned before in Jamaica you wrote love poems. Do you still share love poetry, or do you focus more on political subjects?
And then,
What did you say?
can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. You said before in Jamaica that you wrote love poems.
Yes. Oh, yes. I still write. Oh, yes. I've got plenty of love poems. I've got plenty.
Private.
Do you share them, or do you keep them?
On my Facebook page, go through them, and there's so much poem because I call my wife on stage, and I recite poem for her. I call my mom on stage and I recite poem for her. And same thing with my dad. I try not to so much my mom and dad because I always end up breaking down in tears on stage, and then the audience starts crying as well, and then everyone's crying, and then
It's too much.
and then but I do write a lot of love poems for my wife. We've been together since high school, 28 years now. So she knows the journey. She's been there from day one. So I don't think it's fair to recognize her. That this is Mistress Mayor Lindsay. So we do recognize her from time. Zayden wrote a few years ago. Zayden wrote a poem for her, and he wrote one for me. He called us on stage, and he performed it. And then I should be performing after Zayden, but Zayden had already captivated and stole the audience. So when I went on, I was just trying in vain to win the audience back, but they were gone.
Yeah. So you guys perform together as well then?
Yes, we side by side. Yes, we do.
Oh wow! So how does that work? You just You doing like a duet on stage at the same time?
No, I will do. So I do one poem from about my mother. Then Zayden will do one about his mom, and then I'll do a poem about my father, and then Zayden will do one. I'll do my knife crime, and then Zayden will do his knife crime, and then I'll talk about single parenting and gun crime, and then he'll do his similar. So you know what I mean. People feed off that, and we try not to do it too often because we don't want to get it outplayed too quick. So we sort of tease the audience probably once per year, and that's it. We're not, you know what I mean, we don't want to let them get too used to it because we need to.
You're a real rock star.
Yes, but it is. Go again, please.
Did you ever want to try branching out into London? Doing performances. I know you did the
speak about that
O2.
so often. I said, if we lived in London, our fan base. I know my fan base in Nottingham is massive. I know but we've been to once. There was an event in I put an event on in Signum. And that was we had over 300 people turn up. That was good. We've not been back since. That would have been 2015, so we've not been back to London since. But we do want to do some things in London. A few people's reached out and says, let's get something done in London. I says, arrange it, and we'll come down from the day before and spend the night, and I mean, as a family, and get it done, mainly most in a weekend. So yeah, we want to do more things in London. I want to branch away from the Midlands because I'm already established as a poet down here. So London would be an ideal place.
Let us know so that we can come and see you guys live.
We've got each other's details. We've got each other details. So I will stay in touch. If ever in the future, if if someone ever let you down for an interview on short notice and you want to ask me, say, Mayor, so I should have interviewed someone and they just let me down on a Friday, you can ask me if I'm available. I say yes.
Oh, sweet, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Funny enough, we're going to Birmingham on the 17th and to the 19th for
February.
Of February. There's like a Verve festival there.
Zayden, do you have any social media on which you share poetry?
On Instagram, you can find me at Zayden Lyrical Genius in all lowercase letters.
Oh, good.
Nice.
We'll share that.
Sweet. Okay. Well, I think we said it all today, guys. So thanks for joining us today, guys. Really appreciate talking to you. It's been really enlightening. It's been really good to hear your process and hear some of your poetry and that. And hopefully, the audience really jives with what you're doing. And, we love what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much, Loulou. It's been fun and I really enjoyed it. And as I say, we can stay in touch and get whenever I'm coming to London, we can always touch base and let you guys know, and you can come out, we can meet in person as well, and
absolutely, we love that.
And we hope your fan base will enjoy listening to the episode.
Reste deux femmes et un parapluie au coin de la rue, papotage féminin de voix. La brune rit, secoue ses cheveux. De l'autre côté de la rue, l'homme les observe, de loin, de dos.
Thank you for listening to Poetry to Your Ears. This podcast is published as a newsletter on Substack. All of our content is published for free, but if you would like to support our work, you can become a paid subscriber. This will help us support transcripts for the deaf and hard of hearing community, and anyone who would benefit from reading the podcast alongside hearing it. You can also support us for free by rating the show on Spotify and Apple Podcast or writing a review on Apple Podcast. Share the show with your friends, fellow poets and poetry lovers. If you want to interact with us, you can follow us on @poetry2yourears on Instagram and @poetry2 on Twitter, or you can also write a comment on Substack. If you're American and you're listening to us, send us a message. Half of our listeners are American. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.